Nobody.
You spoke about, what would be acceptable to hear from officials, that it's not for them to let the media know, to put it out. It should be a direct thing with the family, and what would be considered an apology. And I heard one gentleman yell, "Take down the sign," or is there anything that can be done?
Well, I think particularly just in listening to the family's words themselves, there was a press conference earlier in the week where the parents and the elders within the MOVE organization made it clear that there's no way to repair the harm that has been done. Right? It won't bring back Delisha and Tree and all of the 11 people who were murdered in 1985. However, there is accountability to be had. There are remains to be repatriated. And I think the conversation about what comes next has to center MOVE. And that can't happen if there has been no meaningful engagement. Instead, we have seen sort of, what we've heard has been through the media primarily.
This is trauma still. This is trauma still today. Yes. This is trauma still today.
Oh, it's excruciating pain. Excruciating. Oh, it's hard to even talk sometimes. Some of the questions that people ask us take us right back to the kids and the memories of them. And to know that they're not here now, it makes you think all kinds of things, like, who they would have been, what type of adults they would have been, like how old they would have been. They probably would have had kids like I have kids. I mean, they were older than I was, and our kids would have grew up together. It's all kind of...
And the last thing I want to ask you, so we don't hold you too long, is the message here today for this particular location at the President's House as well.
Please do.
Well, I think that part of what the meaning behind coming to this site of power in the institution is to really make visible and legible the harm that has been done, and to call on the university to make more meaningful effort to repair that harm. And that really starts with centering the MOVE family. That really starts with interrogating how this happened in the first place. There is someone who's still employed here who is a center part of this story. And so if there is to be meaningful apology, that, one thing Mike always says is apology without action is meaningless. And so I think that's the message here today. Apology without action is meaningless.
And it has to start from the top. This is the person.
Krystal, your first last name, and spell it for me in your title.
Krystal, Krystal, Strong, Strong. I'm an organizer with Black Lives Matter Philly. I'm also a professor at Penn.
Thank you so much.
Is there any specific steps of accountability you're hoping to see taken? Is there anyone you think needs to be fired based on the mistreatment of your family's remains?
Yeah. Mine need to be fired. A lot of people need to be fired.
So just for people who don't know, who's that?
Janet Mines is the person that gave the course, the losing personhood, and whatever it is. She definitely needs a phone call from her superiors, and then the superiors need a phone call from their superiors. This whole thing is rotten, and you can't just start with one little part of it and cut the one without cutting out all of it. This whole thing is rotten. That museum, that building, that thing that's full of bodies that they stole, that they grave robbed from African American people around this place, that whole thing needs to be torn down to the ground.
How much faith do you have that the Penn administration is going to do the right thing?
It ain't about what the Penn administration want to do. It's about what the pressure of the people that the people put on them to force them to do, because they don't do what's right. That's obvious, right? So what is necessary is for the people to rise up and pressure, and that's what we intend to do.
How do you feel like today went? What are some of the next steps in trying to right this wrong?
Well, we'll see. I think that there's no way to right this wrong. There's a way to take steps toward, some accountability, but there's no really way to right this wrong. These people my sisters has been in a lab for 36 years when they should have been in the ground. They shouldn't have even been in the ground because they should have never been bombed, right? So accountability is it, and you know, we're working toward it.
So, I mean, I'm like sorry to even ask this. I know how hard this must be, but how long was it from when did you find out that they had their remains? And is it okay if I ask what that was like?
Yeah, I found out a day or two before you found out, and it was traumatized. It was disbelief. I don't know what to think. I felt angry. I felt sad. I felt disappointed. But mostly I feel confident. I feel confident because I know my energy and I know the people around me's energy. And when we want to work on something, we work hard. So I feel confident that we're going to get the accountability we're trying to get.
How do you feel about what's going on with Penn? How does that relate to what's been going on with Mumia's condition in prison? Do you feel like there's any common themes at play here?
I feel like the city of Philadelphia hired Penn, and Penn is complicit with the city of Philadelphia and vice versa. And the injustices of this entire city is all connected in some way. So, I mean, you know, it might seem like it's a different category, but it's really not, because the same people who dropped the bomb is the same people who put Mumia in prison. You know, so, and it's, you know, it's all connected in some kind of way.
Have you noticed a change in the climate and how people view Move and like the amount of support you've been getting? Has anything changed over the last few years?
I think so. I think a lot of people, when they first saw Move, they didn't really know what to think. Locks were not really popular back in the 70s and in the 80s. We didn't know who Whoopi Goldberg was. We didn't really understand. Bob Marley wasn't really here like that popular yet. So there was a lot of like confusion about what dreadlocks were. And I think that kind of turned a lot of people off. But I think once it got down to the message and the people could hear the message, I think that made people kind of understand a little bit more. And then locks got really popular, and that changed the game for us for real. That changed the game for sure. I mean, we were still discriminated against for our hair, even in the 90s. So, but now you can't watch a sporting event without seeing locks flying all over the place. And I think that has a lot to do with the change. I also think that there's a lot more people aware of the global warming crisis. There's a lot more people aware of the issue of the real food shortage. There's a lot of people that are more aware about police brutality and unjust jail terms and mass incarceration. So, you know, and now we're also in the age of, you know, do your own thing. A lot of things that never would have been accepted in the 70s and in the 80s, people are doing openly and getting supported for it. So the whole thing has changed. This world has changed.
Do you feel like the nature of like how racism manifests in Philadelphia is different than it used to be?
How it manifests? No. I think the racism in Philadelphia is no different today than it was in 1985 or in 1978 or in 16 whatever. I mean, the racism here, they dropped the bomb on Move. They beat people in broad daylight. Jury convict the cops who beat the man, and the judge take the decision out of their hand and let the cops go. Like, nah, ain't nothing changed. You know, Will Smith said racism isn't getting more common, it's getting filmed, right? I mean, that's real shit. Nothing's changed. This shit is just as bad as it was then.
Just real quick, for anyone who's watching who's not super familiar with Move, how do you think it's been misrepresented, and what do you think people should know about it?
Well, they used to think that we were crazy. People thought Move was crazy because we had locks, because we ate raw food. Shit, raw food restaurants are popping up all over the world now. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that people thought. And a lot of it was perpetrated by the media because they wanted to turn people away from the life and the wisdom that Move was giving them. Move's belief is life. You know, our mission is to encourage people to protect life, people, animals, and the environment. And that mission, the understanding of that mission was lost because there was so much propaganda put out there by the media. But now people are, you know, because they haven't been able to hold up that facade because we've been so busy, you know, putting out information about it that people see it now much more than they did before. But for the people that don't know, come see me.
Is there anything else you want to say to anyone that's watching?
Come see me. You know, for people that want to learn more information, I'm on Instagram at Mike Africa Jr., Twitter, Mike Africa Jr. 1. You can email me at mikeafricajr@gmail.com. And if you want to get in touch with me for my website, mikeafricajr.com. I mean, come get at me.
All right, thanks so much.
You got it, man.